Do you own a strata apartment or a commercial office in a strata building? You may have heard of recent changes to the Strata Titles Act concerning 10-year maintenance plans. This video explains new changes as to how your property will be maintained, commencing May the 1st, 2020. In the past, property was maintained by an unstructured ad hoc process. Owners would contribute money to a fund for the day-to-day management of the strata, e.g. to pay for insurance, the strata manager, gardening, change of light globes, etc. Owners would contribute money to a fund for future large capital expenditure works. Very few strata companies would have sinking fund forecasts. A sinking fund report is a report prepared by an estimator looking at buildings on a plan, not from making an inspection on site. A sinking fund report is valuable when the building is brand new, as there is little maintenance to do, but maintenance is being planned for the future. A sinking fund report has little relevance after the building is more than 7 to 10 years old, as that type of report does not take into account accidental damage to the buildings or view the actual rate of weathering. It also does not take into account design faults that may be causing problems in the building. Every so often, when something major needed doing, such as resurfacing the car park or repainting the entire complex, there would be an examination of how much have we got in the kitty? How much do we need to raise by way of a special levy? In essence, there was no planned maintenance. The new Strata Titles Act calls for strata companies to create two funds by contributions from strata owners. Firstly, an administrative fund that is sufficient in the opinion of the strata company for the control and management of common property, for the payment of any premiums of insurance and the discharge of any other obligations of the strata company. This fund has not changed. The second fund to be created is a reserve fund, mandatory for designated strata companies, for the purpose of accumulating funds to meet contingent expenses other than those of a routine nature and other major expenses of the strata company likely to arise in the future. Are there 10 lots or more in your development? Does the replacement value of all buildings on the property exceed $5 million? If the answer to one or both of the above questions is yes, yours is a designated strata company and must act to have a 10-year plan. The changes to the Strata Titles Act also states that the designated strata company must ensure that there is a 10-year maintenance plan that sets out the common property that is anticipated to require maintenance, repair or replacement other than that of a routine nature in the period of the plan, and the estimated costs for maintenance, repair or replacement. This is what we call a 10-year plan. The next section of the Act describes that the strata company must ensure that the plan is revised every 5 years to cover the 10 years after that revision. Your strata manager will be encouraging your strata company to engage an inspector to inspect your property and write a 10-year plan to help all the owners. If you are a designated strata company, this is a mandatory requirement. Even if you are not a designated strata company, this may be an idea worth considering. The Act and regulations do not specifically say what type of person should do the plan. We would recommend that whoever helps the designated strata company prepare the plan is 1. Fully insured, specifically with professional indemnity insurance. 2. Has a building qualification, a registered builder would be a good start, and someone who has experience in inspecting buildings and building costs, and is experienced in doing these types of reports, and will write the report in accordance with the Australian standard. The Act describes 34 separate areas of the common property building and grounds that must be described, from A, roof and gutters, to ZH, disability access facilities. In practice, an experienced inspector will cover all of those areas, and some areas not described in the Act, such as stormwater, landscaping, signage, termite barriers, which may be pertinent to your building. All designated strata company properties would have the common property areas inspected. These areas may include building exterior walls, roofing and gutters, grounds, car parks, fencing and retaining walls, service ducts and plant rooms, lobbies and common interior spaces. Strata companies will likely also want to consider inspection of roof spaces to look at roof frame issues, roof tie-down or lack thereof, party wall issues such as gaps, smoke barriers, existence of party walls, and ceiling stability, to add to their knowledge of the common property to build their 10-year plans. For a more comprehensive 10-year plan, strata companies may also want to consider inspection of internal apartment or tenancy spaces to look at such things as load-bearing walls, leaking showers between floors and into common areas, leaking windows, damaging fixtures and fittings, balcony floors and balustrades. An inspector would visit your property on a given day or days to fully inspect all common property areas requested by the strata company. They would enter ceilings if specially requested. They would enter apartments if it's specially requested. They would access the roof on foot or view it via a drone. They would open and shut as many doors as they can, access manholes and hatches, operate gates where possible, walk the grounds, inspect all aspects of common property. They will look for signs of moisture damage, weathering, wear and tear, and impact damage to make their assessment of the state of the property. The inspector would ask the strata company for as much information on dates and costs of previous major maintenance as is easily available. It may be wise for the strata company to fill out a checklist prior to the visit of the inspector. The checklist will ask about the operational status of such items as bores, swimming pools, external lights, etc., to keep the costs of preparing the report down. If you have a specialist service contractor already in place, for example for lifts or for fire services, ask them for a 10-year plan on those specialist areas. An experienced inspector would likely be sensitive to the way the building is used and make suggestions on how to improve livability in the common property. For example, security issues, rubbish build-up, blocked emergency access routes, possible flooding issues, outdated facilities, problem trees, how to reduce vagrant sleeping opportunities, COVID-19 issues. A 10-year plan has two parts, a written report and a spreadsheet showing the costs forecast for the next 10 years. Firstly, there would be a written report on all facets of the common property of the building, describing what the type of construction is and what condition it is in, with photographs of problem areas requiring immediate attention. Secondly, there would be a detailed spreadsheet of costings, which describes the likely immediate costs and the provision for long-term replacement of various items associated with the common property. The Act is specific in describing what the Reserve Fund has to provide for other major expenses of the strata company likely to arise in the future. An experienced, conscientious consultant would be remiss in not providing for funds required to replace major predictable capital items of common property, such as roofs, windows, carports, paving, fencing, well in advance of their actual replacement date, in order to prevent the need for extraordinary meetings of the strata company. These longer-term provisions are especially important in these first 10-year plans, as there will be the opportunity to substantially reduce yearly outgoings for those items falling into the 10 to 15-year replacement period. For example, a metal roof replacement costing $75,000 to implement in year 13 would be costed at $5,769 per year in this initial plan, rather than $9,375 per year if left to the next plan. Over time, it is envisaged that by good management of the strata company, that levies will level out over time, with cost increases only for inflation. The Act describes that all designated strata companies must have a plan. There will be a grace period for designated strata companies to implement a strata maintenance plan, being until your next annual general meeting date, being more than 12 months after May the 1st, 2020. After that grace period, a strata property will not be allowed to be sold without the agent being able to offer a copy of the adopted strata maintenance plan. If the answer to the previous questions regarding the number of lots and the value of the buildings was no, your strata complex will likely still benefit from having the professional, independent advice that goes into a 10-year plan. Our experience tells us that most strata developments benefit in asset value, livability, safety, and presentation from having a maintenance plan. If you think that a 10-year plan is a good idea for your strata investment, contact the Council of Owners of your strata company or your strata manager and let them know of your wishes. ABBC has been carrying out strata maintenance plan inspections for the last 3 years, despite the Act and regulations not being finalised, writing our reports to the requirements of the Australian standards. We are experienced in the scope and reporting required. Our inspectors are all employees and are all qualified registered builders as a minimum. We hold professional indemnity insurance as well as general liability and workers' compensation cover. We've been inspecting buildings as a company for over 6 years, with a combined inspection experience of our team of inspectors of over 60 years. ABBC can be of assistance with your 10-year plan.